Hello YouTube, Dave here again. The last couple of discussion-based videos that I've done were a little on the heavy side, so today I wanted to do another discussion, but I want it to be a lot more just lighthearted and fun. So with that in mind, the subject of today's video is which classic module captures the essence of Dungeons & Dragons better? So again, this is just a personal opinion thing, so in the comments, if somebody disagrees with your point of view, just be respectful about it, because, overall, that's what I want to see is just, communication, community, but not, people getting super defensive over someone's opinions. So anyway, the two modules that I've selected, and if you think there's one that does a better job, certainly, feel free to mention that in the comments below. But the two ones that I thought I would show or talk about, at least in a little bit of detail, is B2, Keep on the Borderlands, which came out with the Menser Dungeons & Dragons basic rule set. This came out in 1980 according to the date there. And the second one, I don't have the standalone adventure, but it's Tomb of Horrors is the other one, because these are two of the most iconic Dungeons & Dragons adventures of all time. And Tomb of Horrors came out, I think it was originally developed in showing here is originally developed in 1978, and then I think the main module release came out in 81. So I'll talk a little bit about each of these, because these are two very sort of different types of experiences. So let's start off with my basic thoughts on B2 Keep on the Borderlands. So Keep on the Borderlands, like I said, it was that red box D&D starter set adventure from 1980, and this was included with the basic rules. This was the Menser version of Dungeons & Dragons. So this was your basic expert, companion, master, and then eventually immortal rule set. So this is different from the AD&D and the things along these lines. But this is, again, one of the most iconic adventures and one of the most nostalgic adventures ever released. And this adventure introduced really a generation of gamers to Dungeons & Dragons. The basic premise, the player characters go to this keep, and they explore, the Caves of Chaos and try to drive out all these creatures that, are threatening the keep and everything along those lines. So the Caves of Chaos is where this adventure, really shines. So there's some interesting design quirks that come with this adventure. The first one being that no one, or the keep really isn't all that fleshed out. I don't think there are names given to really anybody in the keep. And it's interesting because this is something that people will defend in Keep in the Borderlands, but realistically, if Wizards of the Coast released an adventure nowadays that had just, this generic keep location with nothing fleshed out at all, then people would probably be all over them for it. But they get away with it here, and it's actually part of its charm, and it really is. It's one of those things that, it's an early example of getting the dungeon master to sort of fill in the blanks, and that's probably part of, what the design intent was. As far as this adventure goes, the Caves of Chaos can be pretty deadly. I only got to play through a little bit of this using the actual basic rule set, and my memories are we fought a few goblins, I think some kobolds, and then we turned a corner and we found ourselves facing down a minotaur, and that was just like a party wipe. So again, it's something that I think this adventure probably got people pretty comfortable with the character creation rules when this came out. But again, this is a starter set adventure. It's for characters levels 1 through 3, or if you play an elf in this version of the rules, basically permanently level 1. But again, this is one of those really iconic ones. It's so well remembered, and I think nostalgia really plays a major role in why this adventure is so popular, because for a lot of people, this was their first adventure. And it's a heck of a way to start. Again, the Caves of Chaos are great, and it's a perfect example, in my opinion, of how you can design adventures that can be challenging or deadly without necessarily being unfair. If you make the wrong turn and wind up in the Minotaur's lair, that's because you made a wrong turn and wound up in the Minotaur's lair. I mean, there's wandering monsters and stuff too that will likely wipe the party, but for the most part, it's really kind of built around the navigation of the players through these caves. So for me, This adventure absolutely deserves its classic status. It absolutely deserves to be one of the most fondly remembered adventures of all time. And in my opinion, it very well captures, the essence of Dungeons and Dragons. So the second adventure that I want to talk about is Tomb of Horrors. So again, this is the Dungeons of Dread hardcover compilation that came out in 2013, but it's got the green devil face on the front. So for a lot of people, Tomb of Horrors, perfectly captures Dungeons and Dragons because, it's one of those most infamous dungeons in all of D&D, and more so than Keep on the Borderlands, it tends to get a lot of focus throughout all the other editions that have come since. Not that Keep on the Borderlands has been completely ignored, but where it was a separate product line, I think for the most part, they kind of stayed away from it as far as endless reprints or retreads. But with Dungeons of Dread, or with the Tomb of Horrors, I should say, that really hasn't been the case. So it's seen sort of reprints or updates, I think, for pretty much all of the major editions that have come out, including even 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, which actually made a whole new adventure that only has the players revisiting the original tomb, which has been long since drained of all its magic and burnt out and things like that. In 5th edition, it's been sort of updated with the Tomb of Annihilation. Excuse me. So the Tomb of Annihilation is sort of their modern twist on the sort of Tomb of Horrors idea. But this adventure has been more or less synonymous with Dungeons & Dragons ever since it came out. So my personal thoughts on it, as you could probably tell by the way I talked about Keep on the Borderlands, that's the one that I'm picking to say that it better captures the essence of Dungeons & Dragons. Tomb of Horrors is a meat grinder, and it is a meat grinder by design and on purpose. Gary Gygax originally designed the adventure as a way of legitimately threatening the survival of his high-level player characters that he was running in his group. So it was meant to kill players. The concept behind it is, how would an ancient, lich or an ancient entity being create a dungeon if they really wanted to keep heroes from exploring it and making things as deadly as possible. I'm not going to spoil a lot of the traps in there, but of course I think by now everyone remembers the green devil face, which there's a green devil face in the adventure that has a sphere of annihilation into it. And some of these things kind of border on unfair, because if I recall correctly, there are other green devil faces that you use that I think teleport you from one location in the dungeon to another. So there's really nothing that necessarily indicates how, which of these is the safe one and which of these is, the deadly trap one. I may be wrong in that. It's been a long time since I've read this. I read The Tomb of Horrors when I first got this book, and then I kind of haven't really gone back to it since. But if I recall correctly, there are other green devil faces that you use, and I know that the 4th edition one definitely uses a lot of green devil faces for teleportation and things of that nature. So this adventure eventually became sort of like a Gen Con tournament module, and then it eventually did see publication. Normally, I think there were 2 different versions of it. There was the green-covered module version, which I believe was the tournament one, and then they re-released it, and I want to say it had blue for the cover. It's either blue or red, but I'm pretty sure it was blue. Maybe orange? I don't know. Like I said, I have it in here, so as far as I'm concerned, I have a copy of Tomb of Horrors. So, like I said, the reason that a lot of people consider this to be the game that captures the feeling of Dungeons & Dragons the most is because of the way that it challenges those high-level characters. You have to work quite a ways to get to the level, which is levels 10 through 14, which doesn't sound like a lot by today's standards, but to get from level 9 to level 10 back in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons days took a long time. So you had to, build your character and progress your character up quite a ways, and then you get tossed into basically this meat grinder that's designed specifically to kill you. And for a lot of gamers, getting through this dungeon with their character intact is a badge of honor, and it's one of those things that they feel a major sense of accomplishment. And probably even more so than exploring the Caves of Chaos, living through this module is something that, again, can give you quite that, sense of, I did it, I won the game. Which is my major problem with Tomb of Horrors, is that it is literally designed to be a confrontational Dungeon Master versus player adventure. And I do not like those kind of adventures. For me, it should always be a collaborative storytelling effort. You can have, difficult dungeons, you can have deadly traps, but this adventure was literally designed for the sole purpose of trying to kill off high-level characters, because I think Gygax felt that the players were getting a little too confident in their characters' abilities. So there's a lot of things that, again, I kind of perceive as unfair in this adventure, like the Sphere of Annihilation inside the Green Devil Mouth, which at this point is so well known that, I don't even want to say spoilers, because most people that have been playing Dungeons & Dragons for a while have heard the story of the Green Devil Face, and I'm sure even players that are just new to it with the Tomb of Annihilation will probably, if they, intermingle with more veteran gamers, will probably, again, hear the stories of the Tomb of Horrors. So I guess the question that I have for you guys is, which adventure better captures the essence of Dungeons & Dragons? Is it Keep on the Borderlands, or is it Tomb of Horrors? Both of these adventures have a high degree of player character fatalities in them. Like I said, by the time you're done the Keep on the Borderlands, you're probably very proficient with character creation, and by the time you've completed Tomb of Horrors, you've probably taken some of your high-level characters and had to lay them to rest. So the question is, which of these two do you think is the better representation of Dungeons & Dragons? For me, it's, like I said before, it's Keep on the Borderlands, because it's more about the exploration, it's more about, the player characters, just kind of being able to do their thing, and, if they make a mistake, they're certainly going to pay for it, but to me, this is a much less hostile adventure. Tomb of Horrors is, again, a rite of passage for a lot of players, and I can see how they think that it better encapsulates Dungeons & Dragons. For me, it's not based on a design philosophy that I would ever employ. I would not want to make an adventure solely to kill my characters off, but, again, for some people, that's the challenge, and for them, the challenge is what's really what captures that essence of Dungeons & Dragons. So let me know in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. And again, if you can think of an adventure that does a better job of capturing the essence of Dungeons & Dragons in your opinion, please feel free to share that as well. There are some people that may think the Temple of Elemental Evil, better captures the essence of Dungeons & Dragons. Some people may say things like Isle of Dread or Ravenloft or the Dragonlance Adventures. So if you have a suggestion, leave it in the comments below. I just picked the two most iconic ones that I could think of out of my collection. So anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.